Welcome to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications. We are your source for lobbying, compliance, ethics, campaign finance, and election news from across the country. Hello, this is Elizabeth Bartz, President and CEO of State and Federal Communications. Let me transfer you to Joe May, who will introduce this week's podcast.
Hello, I'm Joe May. I am the Manager of Corporate Social Responsibility here at State and Federal Communications. But before that, I was in charge of this company's digital media. LobbyComply is 15 years old now. I've gathered some of my colleagues today to help us celebrate this milestone. 15 years ago, I had an idea and I ran to our president and CEO, Elizabeth Bartz, saying that we should start a government relations blog. Elizabeth liked the idea, so off we went. The first thing I did to build the blog was to run over to Ren Kuzer, Senior Director of Information Technology. Ren, here we are. LobbyComply is 15 years old now. I remember at the very beginning, you and I were looking at each other and saying, well, now what are we going to do? What do you remember about how we started LobbyComply blog?
Well, the first thing I remember is I had no idea how to run WordPress. I didn't know what PHP was. None of that. I had to figure out how to run an Apache web server, which I'd never done before. Everything was Microsoft for me. So that was fun. And then I knew that I also wasn't going to be able to build it on the Linux server it needed to be on. So I had to find a version of Windows that would run Apache on it, and which was virtually a no-no even today. Back then, that was the Wild West. That was, the beginning of everything. And it was fun. It was fun. It was kind of edgy, kind of unnerving sometimes. You didn't know what was going to happen next, but it was great. And it looked beautiful. I thought you did a fantastic job on the template. We're always looking at ways to improve its look. And I think it's just as popular today as it was back then in its heyday.
Thank you, Ren. This wouldn't have been possible without your expertise. Our first post went out on June 28th, 2010. Elizabeth Bartz wrote the post, and it was called Welcome to Our New Blog. The question then became, how do we keep up a communication schedule here? It's like the person in the office who has a candy dish, and people keep coming over to take a piece of candy. What would be the candy in our blog's candy dish? Why should anyone in government affairs or any profession keep reading our blog? We have depended heavily on the work our research department does every single day. Michael Beckett, Director, Research Services, is with me today. Michael, over these 15 years, the research department has been an integral part of LobbyComply blog. What is it that your department has been contributing?
Thanks, Joe. So a lot of the material that ends up on the blog begins in-house. It begins with information we need in the research department to make sure our team stays in compliance with lobbying, campaign finance, and procurement rules. So the blog is kind of an outgrowth of what we use at State and Federal Communications. Some of the earliest entries that I can recall dealt with forms being available. Forms have been updated. Electronic filing is now available. Believe it or not, 15 years later, we're still posting about places that are just now getting to electronic filing for lobbying and campaign finance forms. Some other areas that we make sure we're on top of are session dates. So if a legislative session ends early or late, may not be a big deal from a compliance standpoint, or it may be a big deal. We have what's called Tricky 12 states, and those Tricky 12 states plan their reporting calendar according to legislative session dates. So if that session ends early, that could trigger an earlier final report. If the session extends into a month unexpectedly, that could trigger an additional lobbying report. So we want to make sure our audience has session information. And if it is in one of those tricky states, we're going to let you know this does affect lobbying reporting and let you know when that final legislative lobbying report is. Of note, we're not going to be able to call it the tricky 12 states anymore because 2 of our recent blog posts were about states, Idaho and Georgia, removing that tricky requirement. Their lobbyists are going to report on a structured schedule that is not dependent upon the legislative session dates. So again, to recap, what are we trying to tell our audience? Well, quite simply, we're trying to tell our audience what we need as compliance professionals to stay in front of new and changing rules to corporate compliance.
So now, 15 years later, we have created 10,975 blog posts. We have generated hundreds of thousands of views. Over the years, some of our content has really taken off. What are some of those top posts? Nicolette Kuzer, Senior Graphics Coordinator, wrote a post called Who Were the One-Term Presidents?, which tapped into the public interest and topped our Google Analytics for many months with thousands of views. Tell me, Nicolette, did you have any idea this would catch on as it did? And what did you think of the whole thing?
Hi, Joe. Each of us have recollection of the presidents who have been in office during our own lifetime. I wanted to get details on their longevity in office. Amendment 22 of the Constitution declares limits to the number of times a person can be elected to the office of president to 2 terms. I was surprised by the extensive list of one-term presidents. Half of the U.S. presidents have not completed 2 terms in office. It is interesting to note that I have received several emails after elections making sure I knew it was time to edit this article. This is a lifelong, ever-changing post. I look forward to continue.
Nola Warren, Assistant Director, Compliance Services, wrote an Ask the Experts post in 2014 called Using Federal PAC Funds to Contribute to State Candidates. And she has another one from 2015, which deals with employee personal political contributions. These 2 posts have been topping our readership for more than 10 years. Nola, what do you make of this phenomenon your posts have created?
Hi, Joe. Well, I can tell you this. I had no idea when I wrote these that they would still be around 10 years later. You know, they are really important topics for people in government relations to know. I'm so glad that they are helpful. It kind of makes a challenge for me, though. I have to keep revisiting these posts to make sure the information is up to date, and I'm happy to be a part of our blog.
And what about the future? Nick Hollis, our digital media coordinator, is now at the helm of LobbyComply blog. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Thanks, Joe. So really, as a company that's in the information industry, it's more crucial than ever that we are conveying our expertise and that we can do it in a timely fashion, that we're on top of what's happening in our industry. This also really helps us keep alive on social media. We're pumping out all of our blogs across 3 social media channels, but it also showcases that it's really a team effort. You know, we have multiple researchers that are contributing to our blogs all the time. And while I may be the one that actually makes sure that it gets spread across the multiverse of social media, it is very much a team effort. And there are plenty of people that are contributing to our blog on a daily and weekly basis.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today and helping us celebrate. Happy anniversary, LobbyComply blog. Thanks for listening to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications. For more news, visit LobbyComply.com. To learn more about how we can guide you along the road to compliance, visit stateandfed.com.